Hi there. Hey everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be getting started in just 1 second. Just waiting for a few more people to join us this evening. All right. See a few people joining in the chat there. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Thanks so much for joining us again tonight. My name's Ned. I'll be the host of tonight's webinar session, and we'll be talking about the four essential elements of a successful crowdfunding campaign. We'll hear from some successful Pozible creators, and then at the end, we'll also be answering any of your questions with the co-founder of Pozible and Virtual, Alan Crabb. So I can see a few people joining in the chat there. Hi to everyone. Hi, Joanna. Hi, Kerry. Hi to Sally. Hi, Toby, Philip, and Brian as well. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Anyone else joining us, feel free to say good day in the chat. Awesome. So I might kick things off. So yeah, thanks again for joining me this evening. I understand there's a few people from all across Australia. So thanks so much for making the time to be with us. I'd like to first just acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands, wherever we might be sitting or standing this evening, and acknowledge their elders, past, present, and emerging. So for tonight, this online interactive workshop is basically going to be run by myself. My name's Ned. I am the GM at Pozible here. So I work with a lot of different crowdfunding campaigns from various different categories. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is basically all about the four main elements that we've found that contribute to the success of a crowdfunding campaign. So I guess without further ado, I'll just jump into it right now. So what you can see here today, we're going to basically go into detail about these four elements of a crowdfunding campaign. As I mentioned, we're going to hear from a recent success story, which is actually a Melbourne-based photographer, and how she pre-sold her very first debut photography book and how she did that during the lockdown as well. We're also going to see a live walkthrough on how to actually set up your campaign page and walk through what that looks like on the Pozible platform, and quickly go through some of the steps to planning your launch and the checklist items you should be thinking about as well. And then, as I mentioned, we're also just going to jump into a bit of a Q&A session as well with our co-founder, Alan Crabb, who will be answering any questions that anyone might have. So throughout the session tonight, guys, if anyone does think of a question they might want to ask, or perhaps you've already got some questions in regards to your own personal use case for crowdfunding or your campaign, please feel free to enter in the comments your question, and we'll be picking up a few of those questions throughout the night and then answering at the end of the session. Cool. So moving forward, just a quick little background on Pozible for anyone that may not already be aware. We've basically been operating in Australia for about 11 years now, actually, which is quite some time. I've been with the company for about 2 years, but Alan's been here right from the beginning. So he's going to share, maybe a little bit more insight into the actual story and journey of Pozible in a little bit. But essentially, we've helped thousands of campaigns to raise funds online through product pre-orders, through album launches, through to creative endeavors, through to fundraising campaigns for not-for-profits and charities. So we've really been a part of quite a number of small to medium to large fundraising campaigns, and we've got some insights that we'd like to share with you tonight about what the main elements of those successful crowdfunding campaigns are and how you can focus on them yourself to get the most out of your fundraising campaign. So without further ado, jumping into them, the four main elements of a successful crowdfunding campaign. So what we've identified is, number one, it's your audience. Number two, your message. Number three, your offer. And four is your content. So basically what that means is, number one, your audience. Who do you want to view your campaign and support you with the project? So who is going to be the optimum person that's going to view whatever it is you're trying to raise funds for, and who do you want to put that in front of them? Then once you've got your audience, in front of you, what is the message you're trying to convey to them? So what's the main goal of your campaign? And what does the success at the end of it actually look like? Number three, what the offer is. So what value are you providing to your supporters? As Pozible is a rewards-based crowdfunding platform, you're able to offer different levels of incentives to your supporters in return for their contributions to your campaign. And then number four, content. So how can you tell your story and keep your audience engaged with your campaign? So I'm going to sort of just dive into these four aspects a little bit now. I can see everyone joining in the comments as well. Let me know if I'm moving too fast, or if you like something I said. Remember to answer your questions. I can see Alan's jumped in the chat there, asking you to put your questions in there as well. So awesome. All right, so number one is your audience. So thinking about this at the very start, before you're drafting your campaign, before you're even thinking about launching. So it's really important to think about the age-old question, I guess, in any sort of marketing campaign: who is it for? So who is the ideal audience that you want to see in front of your campaign, and where can you access them? So there are a couple of different things you can be doing to, I guess, distill your audience and really find out your specific target audience for your campaign. Thinking about their, specific interests, whether they're really in love with indie music, whether they're Australian indie theatre buffs, whether they, love motorcycle racing, whatever it might be. Think about who is already in your community, whether they're your customers, whether they're your social media followers, whether they're your friends and family. But thinking about where these people congregate, so where do they hang out? And then further to that, where they hang out might be a physical location, could be an online location such as a blog, a forum, a social media platform, but really trying to dive deep into who these people are and where they are going to be accessed. So this is going to inform, how you go about sort of preparing some of the other steps down the track. So thinking about, what types of channels might be the best for you to really get across your message, and also then creating content for those types of channels, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, basically researching any of these channels. And if you're already active on a certain platform, whether it's social media, whether you've got an email list, whether you have a weekly, friend group meetup, something along those lines, sticking to, what already works for yourself, whether it's your brand, your independent art group, whatever it might be. I'm just pulling it some examples here, but you kind of get the idea here. And also thinking about any sort of timely trends, anything that might be going on in the media, anything that might be somewhat of a boost to your campaign that you can perhaps use to leverage to get a bit more exposure than you otherwise would. Okay, so moving on, the next step is the message. So this is the point where we really want to distill the exact goal and the mission statement of the campaign into one or two lines that are really going to sum up your brand and the purpose of the campaign overall. So what I can say about this is to be as specific as you can be. So this might be something along the lines of, hi, I'm an independent artist. I'm looking to raise funds to put out my debut album. I really need your support to get behind me. Something along those lines. So try to be as specific as you can. Use urgency and purpose. So it could be something along the lines of, I need your support by this certain date. Otherwise, I won't be able to go through with the project. So making sure to use urgency, using key dates, with a strong call to action at the end, letting people know why you need their support and also what it will go towards. So what the ultimate outcome is of the project. And making sure as well to use an inclusive tone. So things like we, us, our, These are all going to bring people into your project, bring people into your community, and make people feel like it's a collective goal. So with a fundraising campaign, and specifically with Pozible as well, you'll be able to put your fundraising target at the top of the campaign page, and everybody will be able to see this on the campaign page. This is public information. So you want to try and make your whole audience or your whole community accountable to the goal that you're trying to achieve. So using inclusive language and using inclusive tones is really going to help people with that. All right, now moving on, we have what the offer is. Okay, so we're powering through this, guys. I saw some comments in the chat just there. Can we get the slides? Yeah, everyone who's in attendance tonight will be receiving a copy of these slides, and we're also going to be recording this live session. So the recording is going to be available for everyone that's registered tonight. So don't worry at all about that. You'll definitely be able to access this at a later time. All right, so moving on now to the offer. So this is where Pozible as a crowdfunding platform is, pretty special, because we allow your campaign to offer different levels of incentive to your supporters, and we call those rewards. So basically what that means is you're able to show your supporters that you're going to give them something in return for their contributions to your campaign. So it's quite important to have a good hard think about this. It might be quite obvious for your crowdfunding campaign what those rewards are. Say for in the example that I used before, if you're an independent artist looking to release your debut album, then a reward might be a vinyl pressing of that album itself. It might be a digital download of the album. It might be a t-shirt. It might be a ticket to a live concert or the launch party or something along those lines, or even perhaps a workshop or a music lesson with the artist themselves. So these are all things we've seen offered as rewards on the Pozible platform in the past, and they work really well because you're showcasing the value to your target audience. So going back to your audience, thinking about the people that you're trying to service, giving them something that they're going to actually want to spend money on, and explaining what that means to not only you, but to them as well. All right, so going down, we want to also try to create some scarcity. Now, what that means is basically you're able to limit the amount of quantity that you offer on your campaign. So this is really good when you see, there's only 5 items left, and basically, it sort of speaks to people's fear of missing out, the whole FOMO sort of complex where people think, oh shit, I better get in now and, grab that thing before it sells out. So this is a really good strategy. And even if you do have, more than the quantity that you're sort of letting on at the moment, you can create that scarcity by, limiting the amount of rewards that are on offer. And then you can always add in, these at a later date during your live campaign if you do sell out. So that's a really important one, I think. All right, so the next one we have is setting the expectations from the beginning. So this is basically meaning that you're able to set your audience's expectations from when they make a pledge to when they can expect to receive their reward item. So if it's a physical item, there obviously might be a time frame from when you receive the funds from your fundraising campaign to when you can actually produce that end product. So letting them know what that sort of timeline looks like, and this is something that you can outline quite clearly within your Pozible campaign. Now, thinking about the different types of rewards, I sort of spoke to a few different examples just before, but thinking about different price points as well. So within your audience and all the people that are going to be viewing your crowdfunding campaign, you're going to have people that are willing to contribute various levels of support. So we generally see on the Pozible platform, the most common price point for people to want to contribute to a campaign is the $50 mark, closely followed actually by the $100 mark. So in that order, $50 and $100 are the 2 most common pledged amounts. So it's in your best interest to have a reward at those 2 price points or around those 2 price points. So thinking about, what you can offer your audience that's going to be around those price points to entice them to contribute that amount. So if we look at the next point, some of the different types of rewards, which we alluded to just before, physical, experience, and recognition. Physical being sort of what I mentioned before in terms of physical products, bundles of physical items, anything that is going to be shipped out or picked up by your supporters and they can hold in their hand. Experience, this is going to be things like tickets to a live gig or a launch party, or in the event of a global pandemic, which unfortunately we've all been experiencing for the last feels like ages, you can offer them an online experience. So it might be a live webinar such as this one, or a live streamed gig or something along those lines as well. And then last but not least, recognition as well, which is not to be discounted, because sometimes people actually don't want anything in return. But recognition allows you to still recognize those donors or those contributors for whatever amounts they've supported your campaign. So this might be in the form of a social media shout out, or shouting out the supporters on a web page, or on the foreword of a book or something along those lines. Anything like that is a form of recognition. All right, so hopefully that's all coming together now, guys. We're going to push right on through to the next one, which is number 4. So we've got content. So this is basically once you've identified your audience, you've really understood what the message is and what the goal of your campaign is, and then you've also crafted some great offers. So you've got some physical products, you've got some experiences to offer, and you've also got some recognition products to offer. Now we're going to think about how we actually are going to promote the campaign. So once it goes live, you're not just going to expect everyone to all automatically understand that your campaign is live. You're going to have to tell them about it, and you're going to have to direct them to the campaign page as well. So we really stress the sort of planning phase of the campaign at Pozible, and we have a lot of resources actually from our end to sort of help you out with this process. So planning out a schedule that's going to be easily serviceable by you and your team if you have one, and something that you can stick to as well and be consistent throughout the campaign. All right, so creating content that will educate, inform, entertain, and promote your campaign is going to be something that you can sort of fall back on and have the most, I guess, make it easier for yourself down the track once you have launched the campaign. So we can't stress enough about how much video content plays an enormous role in crowdfunding. So as you can see here, campaigns with a pitch video are at least 3 times more likely to be successful. So pitch videos can be pretty much in a lot of different forms. We typically recommend they should be between 2 to 3 minutes long, and have it can be either yourself talking to an iPhone camera, if you have a bit of a video production background, or if you have a friend that can shoot video. Try to get anybody in your circle involved to help you out with this. If your project is something creative and you already have some previous video content, or a music video or something along those lines, definitely draw on past content that you can sort of use as a bit of canon to help you further explain who you are and what you're trying to do. So I guess bringing all of that into the pitch is going to make it a lot easier for you, and even at that stage as well, planning for the channels that you're going to be promoting on. So thinking about if you've got video content, maybe shooting a vertical video that you can put on an Instagram story, or a YouTube video if that's something that you're going to be promoting on. So thinking about the actual end platform where you're going to actually be putting that piece of content. And the final one is just basically thinking about ways that you can be a bit less salesy. So not specifically saying go to my campaign, give me money, buy one of the rewards or pledge to one of the rewards, but thinking about ways that you can give away value. So this might be a behind the scenes sneak peek a preview of what's to come, and basically just telling a story so that your audience can feel like they're involved in a bit of a journey, and it's less salesy. All right, so I think that's pretty clear. Let me know if anyone's got any other questions in regards to that. Now, what I'd like to do is basically just show you a bit of a insight from a previous Pozible successful creator. Her name's Alana Holmberg. So she's a photographer, journalist, writer based in Melbourne. And as I alluded to before, she actually launched her debut photo book called Porch Diaries on the Pozible platform during lockdown earlier this year. So we're going to play just a bit of an interview from Alana now.
My name is Alana Holmberg, and I am a photographer and a writer based in Melbourne. And the project that I raised funds for on Pozible was a book, my first photo book. During lockdown in 2020, I took more than 240 portraits of people from my porch, looking out to passers-by and people who had walked past my place. And it's called Porch Diaries, and it ended up being an exhibition and a book. And I decided to self-publish the book, and I really wanted to make sure that I supported Australian businesses in the process. So it was pretty high cost, and I decided to use Pozible to fundraise the production costs by offering pre-sales through the platform. No, I had never done crowdfunding before, or any sort of fundraising for my art, really. I suppose I've seen a lot of people do it, so I was familiar with kind of the format and the kind of vaguely familiar with the strategy that people use, but for sure this was my very first time kind of embarking on something like this for myself. Yeah, I had a few key messages that I thought would appeal to people. I was trying to think of things that would motivate someone to buy the book beyond wanting the book themselves. You know, I thought the people who would want a book would buy a book, and I didn't really need to convince them about that. There was 200 people in the series that I thought maybe half of them would buy a copy, and everyone in the community was quite invested. So I felt confident that people who would buy a book would buy a book. But then I thought, okay, well, how can I convince that next circle of people to buy a book? One of my messages was that it was my first photo book, and I felt like that might motivate people who were just generally interested in supporting me as an independent artist. Another message I had, which I mentioned earlier, was that I made a decision quite early that I wanted to support Victorian suppliers, a designer, a book binder and printer in Melbourne. I made that decision knowing it would cost more overall, but I thought that with the messages, that would be a really strong hook for people, because we knew that through COVID, businesses suffered, particularly creative businesses. So I thought this could be a way in which people could support creative businesses, you know, using my project as a channel to support those creative businesses. The third thing I did was I decided that if I was able to cover my costs with the book, and, you know, had a pretty extensive budget that was about the exhibition, it was about the book. I factored in an artist fee for myself so that I wasn't, you know, completely out of pocket, even though, you know, I did kind of take 3 months to do this project without working too much. So I got some reimbursement for myself, but I had a figure in mind, and I knew that once I reached that, I would donate a percentage of my profits to a local nonprofit organization in my community. So keeping those messages really consistent. You know, if you buy the book and I reach that target, then we're also kicking in some money to a grassroots community project as well. So there was kind of a double bonus. And I found that that was a really beautiful way to speak about the project right at the end, when you kind of reach really close to reaching that special number, that you can say, okay, now any book sold from here on in is going to be donated. The profit's going to be donated to this organization. So, you know, that component's not possible for everyone, because sometimes you're just scraping by to cover production costs and not go into debt. And definitely the line was quite thin for me. But I did feel like right at the end, that was a really nice key message to bring into the campaign. It was a bit of a combination of good luck and a bit of knowledge about how the media works. So I am an artist, but I also am a photojournalist. And so I work for media organizations. I also have a background in public relations and media. So I had that kind of strategy in my mind. I knew that if I could find a hook to talk about the project, and by the way, the book is for sale, I might have a chance of getting coverage. Now, I didn't have much luck initially, I have to say. But when Melbourne went back into lockdown, number 4, which was about a month ago now or more, it happened to be right when my campaign was up. And so suddenly I had a hook to talk about the project, the book, and the fact that the book was for sale. And so in terms of practically what I did, I wrote a media release. I think for people who don't know what they look like, you can find examples online, but just wrote up details of what was happening with some quotes. I made like a media pack online, which had the media release, some images, and of course my call to action across all those things. And I created like a little simple URL, was to pre-order the book if you're interested in. So yeah, I definitely did a couple of days of pretty full-on media pitching. I tried to find, I had my existing contacts from my work, like photo editors and other editors. And then I did a bit of trawling on the internet to find who else I could pitch it to. For example, radio announcers who talked a lot about COVID and lockdown, I thought might be interested. I didn't actually get any radio coverage at the time, but I've just since got a couple of interviews since. So it's not quite lined up with the campaign itself, but of course it helps the project all together. But yeah, I suppose you could say I had a pretty keen media strategy ready at the kind of 3/4 mark of the campaign, so that when someone came to the Pozible site, they could see that there was a significant amount of funding behind it. And, people have that psychology that if lots of people have backed it, then I'll jump on board and kind of push it to the last target. So I tried to time it in that way, and lockdown number 4 just kind of was a nice coincidental push and made it a bit relevant for the media to talk about it again. There was a silver lining for sure, because alongside the book there was an exhibition, and the exhibition opened 2 weeks late because of lockdown number 4 and closed a week early because of the lockdown we're in right now, lockdown number 5. So for all my worry that people would be sick of talking about lockdown and therefore not be interested in my project, it's ended up being still really relevant, which I think has really helped me out in the fundraising. Yeah, that actually our chat that we had before the campaign was pretty instrumental in my strategy. I didn't really know how to approach it because I felt like my target was quite big. I think it was $8,500, and it just felt like it was a big target. And you and I talked about a strategy of, and I was worried because I knew that the Pozible rules were that it was an all or nothing. And I thought, well, that $8,000 is kind of like a big target and risky because maybe I'll get to 7 and don't get to keep it. So you and I discussed a strategy of like setting quite a low but realistic target. I think my first one was $3,500. And then moving up in increments from there. I think I had 6 and then I had 8.5 and then I went over. That was really helpful to structure it in that way. It felt much more achievable just in my mind, because I'm like, okay, yeah, we're just hitting to $3,500. And in that first few days, which probably from a lot of the campaigns you work with, there's a big uptick of people supporting in those first days. They'd heard about the book, they knew it was coming, and they jumped online straight away to buy. And I got pretty close to that $3,000 in the first week, I think. And so not only did that feel good for me, like kind of reaching the first target, I got to keep that $3,500 and every dollar from that point on. It also looked good, like publicly, to like, wow, she met her target within 7 days. Awesome. And, the psychology of that is like, let's jump on board and support it. I definitely had a lull in that middle It was lockdown as well, so I didn't push it. But then again, to be able to say at the $6,000 mark, okay, we're pretty close to being able to donate some profits to that NGO, let's bring it home, with a bit of media coverage in the mix, really helped push over those final targets. So I would say that strategy was probably the most instrumental in my success, and also just helped me manage my anxiety, I suppose, because you just know that you've banked some of it, and then you reach one and you bank that amount, and then after that you're good. So if that's helpful for people to know how to structure kind of the finance startup, I hope they can take something from that. I would time it a little differently in regards to the production of the book. The visuals that I used in the campaign were design mock-ups because I had not yet got a physical proof. And so one weakness I think of my campaign was that the visuals weren't that strong. And when I did get the proof back and, you know, I held it in my hands instead of looking at it on the screen, I realized I wanted some design changes. So even at that point, I wasn't that willing to photograph the proof and use it as visuals because I thought, well, it's probably going to change between now and the book arriving with my backers. So probably if I did it again, I would get further along in the book process, probably have a proof finalized and in my hand so I could photograph it and do some nice video visuals, and then launch the campaign. It was quite hard to be doing creative decisions and thinking at the same time as doing a fundraising strategy. I would definitely separate them more in the future. I kind of tried to do too much at once. So, you know, now that the fundraising campaign is over, I'm kind of finalizing the design of the book and we'll send it out in the coming weeks. But I think it would have probably been a bit more strategic, and maybe I would have sold more copies if I had a physical copy of the book from the beginning. Well, okay, so we've reached our target, exceeded it a little bit, which is very nice. So that has allowed me to make a few extra design changes that I probably couldn't have afforded beforehand, or my original budget didn't allow for. So I'm just working with a designer to fine tune that. I've added a few more images to the book, and we're getting the final proof back probably by Friday this week. So next steps are, you know, hitting print on that officially, communicating with everyone who has pre-sold the book. Because it's such a local project, I think I'm going to do a local pickup day so that everybody comes and gets it on the same day, and I can kind of thank them in person for their support. So I'll be kind of, I guess, doing the fulfillment, which is, you know, book signing, book packing, and sending it to those who have paid for postage. So yeah, last 3 weeks, I guess. I hope within a month the book is out there in the world and in the hands of everyone who supported me, and I can move on to different things. Half the battle is like, okay, how am I going to talk about this project differently today, you know? And I was constantly racking my brain. I'm like, okay, I mean, in the end, I don't know if you saw this bit online, but I ended up, because the NGO that I gave money to is a piano organization. They provide piano lessons. So I was like scratching my head on that last weekend. I'm like, okay, what's going to make people laugh and make them give? So I got on and played piano on Instagram just to like try and have something different to talk about. Same message, but basically like, okay, this is I'm scratching the bottom of the barrel now. I'm like, and so I think having those milestones and giving you something different to talk about is great, because then you don't also feel like you're blasting people with that sales message. I was really hesitant to be like, buy. It's not me, and I don't like it when I get it from other people. So this was a way for me to feel a bit more relaxed about it and just come and talk on social media when I had something specific to say, also buy the book, you know? And the amount of people who had been planning to buy the book and didn't buy it until I said there's 24 hours left is amazing. I mean, lots of people just like, they bookmark it in their mind, but they don't quite get back to it. So don't underestimate the power of reminding people in subtle and kind of clever ways that make them laugh a bit.
Awesome. yeah, that was such a great insight from, Alana there, just talking about her Porsche Diaries campaign. And, the real takeaway that I think I got from that is, she's talking about how much more prepared she would have felt and how much easier it would have been if she had have had, some more content prepared at the start. So going back to, the sort of fourth element we talked about previously, you can never have too much prepared for your campaign. So thinking about, photographing your products in different scenarios, or having different posts planned for, different stages and different milestones of your campaign. But yeah, let me know if you enjoyed Alana's feedback, and we're actually planning on doing a couple more in this series as well with previous successful creators. So I'll maybe talk a little bit more about that towards the end of tonight's session, and how you can sort of access some of these other success stories as well. Yeah, just moving on now. We mentioned we were going to do a bit of a run through of how to actually get started with a draft campaign on Pozible. So, we've talked about, sort of all of these sort of most important elements, but how do you actually get started, practically going to the Pozible platform and jumping in and getting started? So I might just quickly share how we're going to do that now. So basically you come to pozible.com, and you'll be able to create a campaign. So anyone can jump on our website at any time and basically, create their draft crowdfunding campaign. And basically how that works is you'll be able to choose from a few of the different campaign types that we offer on Pozible. So the main one is the all or nothing one, which is the one that Alana used, which is the one that most campaigns use. And to set that up, you're able to log in to an existing Pozible account, or you can register for one. You can use Facebook, Google, or Apple login, or you can just use your email address here. So basically, once you've clicked on the login button and create, we'll go ahead and click login. If you need to, forget the password, you'll send a reset email as well. Always important, and always important to remember your password too. Cool, but once you get through that first stage of signing up or logging in, you'll be presented with this screen. So this is where you'll be able to choose your campaign type. So you'll see on the left-hand panel there, we've got the all or nothing one to start with. So that's where you can choose your funding target, offer the rewards we were talking about before. Things like pre-sales, events, and product launches work really well for this type of campaign. So that's the main one. That's the one that most people choose. We also have a donations option, which is for charities and non-for-profits. So these are for Australian charities and non-for-profits currently. We don't have this option available to anyone else at the moment, but it's really good for seasonal fundraising campaigns. And we also have functionality to offer tax-deductible receipting. The next one is subscription profiles, which is basically a monthly supporter contribution, where you can set different subscription tiers for regular contributions. And this last one is the waitlist campaign. So a free landing page tool. Basically, you can share some information about your upcoming project and capture users' names and email addresses so that you can then target them when you do launch your fully fledged crowdfunding campaign. But for the purposes of today's example, I'm just going to select the all or nothing campaign. So on to the next step here for the campaign details. You'll see that you'll be prompted to enter in a few things at this stage. And it's important to remember that you can set up a campaign and you'll be able to edit all of these details down the track in the project editor. So, even if you want to change the campaign title, I'm going to go ahead and put a pre-order for my debut album. This is just an example, but I think of myself as a bit of a budding musician. So, let's do it. I can change the currency that I want to raise my funds in. So I can choose US dollar, New Zealand dollar. There are a few major currencies here that I can choose from. I'm going to keep it at Australian dollar. I'm going to set my ambitious target at 10K. And I also need to select an end date at this point to progress. So just remember that, you can obviously change the dates and the target at a later stage. This is just to sort of get started with your, basic crowdfunding campaign. All right, so moving on to the profile details. You'll have the profile name there, which is basically going to be taken from your account name. but you can actually change that to, maybe your band's name or your organization's name, or, whatever you want to have as, the main sort of branding of your crowdfunding campaign. So I'm just going to put here my band's name. You can also update a tagline down below as well. So it might be, a bit of a slogan, or something that's going to be catchy and memorable that people will be able to see and clearly identify as that's you. So you can also see here that as I input on the left hand side in the input panels, you'll be able to see the live preview on the right hand side. So this is a really good way to sort of visualize how your crowdfunding campaign is going to look once you've got everything together, you're ready to launch it, and how it's actually going to look to your audience. So just going through, I've entered in the location and I've chosen my category, which is music. The next step is actually to select the about section, and you can enter in a short bio about yourself or your organization, just to give people who perhaps might not be aware of who you are a bit of context about who's behind the crowdfunding campaign. Now, next of all, we have the links. So you can actually link out to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also to an external website. So this is great for, just sending people to your existing channels. So telling them to, go and check out your Instagram, or, join your external website as well. So that's where you can put all those details in. Awesome. So we're flying through here now. So now you can jump into the profile visual section. So this is where you get to essentially make this campaign header look really engaging, really bright and inviting. And it's going to be, the cover image is behind all of the content you'll see here. And then the campaign photo is behind the card on the right-hand side of the screen. So you can choose to either upload an image from your computer if you've already got something planned, or you can see down below, we've got a design on Canva button as well. So I'm going to showcase this tonight. Basically what it does is it'll launch the Canva platform. For anyone who's not aware of Canva, it's an awesome and really customizable online design tool. And it is free as well, which is amazing to access this resource. So we've actually got a plugin direct into the Pozible campaign builder. So what you can do is launch it like I'm doing here, choose from thousands of templates that the Canva team have already created, or you can build a custom design yourself. For the purposes of tonight's example, I'm just going to go through here and select a stock photo just to show you that this is how it works. So once you're happy with the image that you want to use for your cover image, you can go ahead and select publish. And basically what that's going to do is just send it straight through to your Pozible campaign, and you'll be able to see that basically appear in real time. So yeah, for anyone who doesn't already know about Canva, it's a great resource to be able to create content for different social media platforms. Really awesome for being able to prepare all of your different content types for your crowdfunding campaign. But you can see here that I've uploaded my cover image now, and now I'm going to go ahead and just get the campaign photo up as well. So same deal, I've just launched Canva. Let me know if any questions at this point in time, guys, in the comments, and remembering that we're getting really close to answering your questions as well. So if you've got anything in your mind that you've been thinking about, anything that I've said, anything that was brought up with Alana's interview as well, or anything with this setup process as well, you can just put it in the chat, and myself and Alan will try to answer all those in just a second. But yeah, basically just going through here, I'm just going in. You can see here that I've chosen a stock photo, and I'm just going to put this as the campaign photo, which is the one that's going to appear on the campaign card on the right-hand side of your campaign. So once this saves, which we'll do nice and quickly, thank you, you'll see it appear there on the right-hand card of the screen. Awesome. And another, insight or a tip here as well is to remember that you can see that you've got the text appearing over the photo. So it's the best, in your best interest, to try to avoid using images with text in them already, because it's going to just make it a little bit messy, a little bit harder to read for your audience. So you want to try and make it as visually optimized as possible. All right, so the other thing that you can do in the profile visuals is also just embed a pitch video. So we sort of spoke about pitch videos before and a bit about the form, the style of them, the call to action as well. So once you've created your pitch video and you've uploaded it to a streaming platform such as YouTube or Vimeo, you can go ahead and paste your video URL here. And what that's going to do is basically embed the video into the campaign header. So as you can see on the preview pane there on the right, we've got that big play button there now. So that's going to be the call to action for your traffic that's coming to your campaign page. They're going to be able to click on that play button and play your pitch video right there. So you can see how sort of central the pitch video really is to a campaign. So it's quite important to have something really engaging there that's going to help you get your message across. So I've just toggled the mobile view as well, which is an option in that preview pane. Lets you kind of see, what the mobile view is going to look like for your audience as well, which is, something that, is pretty, common, people accessing, links on their phone. So it's really good to check this, as you're setting this up to make sure that it's going to look, nice and fantastic on people's phones. Awesome. And then basically, once you've created that, you're going to be able to go ahead and continue editing the project in the project editor right then and there, or you can also just save it to a draft and come back to it at a later stage. We'll be doing another, video on the project editor and diving deep into some of the customizations and things you can do in the project editor, such as creating different reward levels, which we spoke about before, but how you can actually set those up in the project editor. Also, a bit of a layout template for your campaign description and some of the different, content and, things to be including in terms of background info and things like that as well. And then also you enter in your budget. So thinking about your fundraising target and, a bit of a breakdown into why you need those funds and where they're actually going to go towards once the campaign is successful. All right, but we'll just jump out of that for now. So we're pretty much on to the Q&A now. So I'd like to invite Alan. I think Alan is perhaps with us in the live stream now. If you can perhaps jump in, Alan, how are you going?
Hey, Ned. Thanks so much. Fantastic so far, Ashley. And thanks for all of the questions as well, Ashley, over the last, 30 minutes now. So as a quick introduction, I'm Alan Crabb. I'm the co-founder of Possible and Birchal. And I've had the pleasure of actually seeing crowdfunding evolve from pretty much day zero, actually. So we were one of the first platforms here in Australia, actually one of the first platforms in the world, actually, to provide this as a service to, in the early days, the creative industries and anyone with an idea and a project in mind to raise funds. So it has definitely evolved a lot, and I think I would love to cover off some of the questions that you have, and then maybe give you some insight into what I have seen since day one. When we started out, it started out very small, and even our first campaign was only for a few $100 for a flight, but it really set the scene nicely for what has really inspired pretty much a population of people to actually use it as a model to not only raise funds for a project, but even in today, we're seeing companies and enterprises actually using this as a model to raise capital and to raise funds for ideas or for even more commercial ideas projects as well. So we've seen projects raise a few $100, and also I've had insight into the success of creating a campaign to raise up to $3 million. So I'm very happy to share some of that insight through the Q&A session. And as Ned has went through the key success factors, I'll maybe go into some detail in what I've seen to give you some insight into some of the most successful campaigns in Australia particularly. So Ned, do you want to maybe kick off the Q&A, actually?
Yeah, of course. So I'm just looking through all of your comments in the chat. So thanks so much again to everyone that has been, engaging in there and putting in some questions. I think I've got one question from Anthony here who asks, the offers part is a bit confusing. I know what rewards to offer, but not what prices to set them at. Did you want to maybe cover off, I guess, some of the different types of rewards or different price points to be thinking about when, adding rewards to a campaign, Alan?
Yeah, I think that there's two aspects to this. I think one is thinking about what to use as rewards, and I kind of put them into two buckets. I put it into physical product, so something that you can actually pretty much commercially sell through the platform or pre-sell, and then the other thing is experiences. So what is what do the people actually, what would people consider as value from supporting the campaign? So in the case of like a campaign it's maybe more lens towards the patronage side of things, people just want to be associated or involved in making something happen. So inviting them into the process, into the campaign, or even afterwards, having some sort of experience to kind of recognize people with that is really encouraged. So think about like the physical and the product side. When it comes to pricing, it is slightly more challenging to price in a sense that because you're doing this campaign, you're wanting to raise enough funds to actually execute on it. But you need to be mindful that with a product, people's perception of a price may apply. So, for example, if you're pre-selling an album, like people will already have in their head a kind of a price point, and you need to consider that. So, it's really ideal to kind of bundle things together where people don't have a perception of the price point, and they may not even tell their friends. Well, if you get it wrong, they won't talk to their mates or friends afterwards that, hey, I'm supporting this project, but I'm getting a tea towel for $150. So just be mindful of the pricing. I think when it comes to products on their own, encouraging bundles, and also thinking about experience and invitations, events, all of these kind of things. Slightly more challenging in today, particularly the offline events, but like we really want to encourage, particularly early stage ideas, to build up the community, build that engagement, and the best way to do that is inviting them really into the campaign itself. Price points for crowdfunding more generally, $50 in Australia is the most common pledged amount. $25, $100 are the second and third most common. So if you do want to consider like 2 or 3 different tiers of rewards, think about these kind of price points, because these are tried and tested, and it could be influenced by the Plausible platform more generally, but I think this is a good guide generally in Australia.
Yeah, definitely. All right, then I think I can see another question here just from Joanna, just asking, how can I distribute products to backers if the campaign is successful? And does Plausible provide any assistance on shipping and distribution? Did you want to maybe tackle that one, Elle?
Yeah, so this is a bit of around the planning and prep, I say, for a campaign as well. So like with setting your target, setting expectations of what you can achieve, thinking carefully about how you can produce and also distribute is pretty important. There is quite a few providers now, particularly online providers in the fulfillment and the shipping space, and we can provide some guidance around this. I think we may have a blog post, or we may share a blog post on some of these shipping and fulfillment services in Australia. But generally, the first thing is to consider what that looks like, because one lesson I've learned from prior campaigns, and we've hosted quite a few of these campaigns where they've had to distribute product afterwards. And maybe even Alana can actually talk to this as well. And if anybody wants to ask these questions, we can actually reach out to some of these projects and ask specifically more recently how they've done this as well. So yeah, there's quite a few services. Also, at the end of the day, you can do a lot of these things yourself, package everything up, and walk down to your AusPost and and get it distributed. So it really depends on, I suppose, the volume that you're at and how successful your campaign is, really.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think I'd just add to that on the Pozible platform, we talked about sort of some different reward levels already, but you can also choose to, accept additional charges for different shipping options. So maybe it's, a local pickup, maybe it's, interstate shipping or even international shipping. And you can set some different price points for each of those as well through each of your reward levels. So we're able to capture those additional shipping costs, whatever they might be. Awesome. So hopefully that sort of answered a little bit about what assistance we can sort of provide on the shipping side of things. I can see here Philip had a question just in regards to any previous examples for events. So I think we could probably talk about that, Alan, just in terms of tickets for live events and some previous successful event campaigns. It's definitely something that is a pretty strong category on Pozible in terms of live events. Obviously, before we experienced all these lockdowns, but definitely pivoting to sort of some more online events such as this one. And I guess your insights into that as well, perhaps.
I think what events are probably the most they underutilize crowdfunding probably the most, because really for an event you're pre-selling or selling tickets well beforehand, and I suppose through crowdfunding you're utilizing or potentially utilizing the funds to be able to execute on this well in advance. And using crowdfunding, you can really tell the story and invite people into the creation of that, or the curation, I suppose, as well, of an event. So I think this has been used pretty much from day one for events, actually. And we've had festivals, for example, significant large independent music festivals. I used to use us as a platform to do that pre-sale. So we do have, as you mentioned, rewards and configuration rewards set up to facilitate this. And really, I suppose what it comes down to, particularly with crowdfunding, is with your pitch and your page, that being the center point for bringing people to the campaign. So generally, when it comes to events, you're selling one ticket or you're specifically selling a certain thing. With a crowdfunding campaign, you're really creating a mission of what you're trying to create generally, and being able to pitch and tell the story of the team or the group or whoever's putting the project together. And that is substantially different. And today, when it comes to social media, really, you want to grab people's attention very quickly. And content, particularly with video, the general advertising mechanisms are changing. So you have to be creative in the way that you're capturing people, and also engaging people in a way that they feel compelled to actually get involved. So I think this is a really powerful mechanism, I say, for not only events, but for many other types of marketing, particularly through digital.
Yeah, so true. Thanks so much to everyone entering in their questions here. I can just see someone mentioning that they didn't catch the start of tonight's session. Don't worry at all. We definitely are recording it. So we'll be sending out a link to the recorded session after tonight's session wraps up. I wanted to address a question here from Toby, actually, just asking how does Pozible make the money? So what do we charge as a platform, and what's the cost to a user or a creator getting started?
Yeah, it's pretty simple, actually. So as mentioned by Alana, we're an all or nothing platform. So on success, we take a fee. We take a 5% success fee, but you also need to consider a transaction fee, and that's in Australia 1.75%. So altogether, our success fee is, as I say, 5%. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just sort of adding to that as well, there's no upfront costs as well to get started with a crowdfunding campaign. So you can, as we saw before, get started with a draft crowdfunding campaign, plan out all of your project, launch it, and at only the point of success is that point where we actually capture all of the pledges from your supporters, and then that 5% success fee is incurred. But I can also see someone asking here, thanks Kaz for asking, are there any specific non-for-profit charitable donation campaigns, and what percentage does Pozible take for donations campaigns? So perhaps I can just sort of jump in to answer this one as well, Alan. But we've launched the donations campaign as a free tool for Australian non-for-profits and charities. So we actually don't charge any campaign fees, Pozible platform fees on those donation campaigns. So basically the only charge associated with those ones is the transaction fees that Alan mentioned before. But other than that, it's pretty simple to get started with those two. You can also offer, incentives, recognition, rewards on those types of campaigns. But it's, again, as I said, only available to Australian charities or non-for-profits at the moment. All right, so I am conscious that we are sort of, creeping up on the hour mark now. So I'm just going to trawl through the comments to see if there's any other ones that anyone might be asking. Can you see any there, Alan, that you'd like to answer?
There's a few. I think we may need to cover some of these here off afterwards, because I just realized the time myself. I think I'd like to just maybe summarize, I see some of the key success factors that we've generally seen. And I think just to reiterate some of the things that Alana mentioned as well, because she reminded me, I haven't seen this video until tonight, but she reminded me in some of the things myself that are criticalized to be successful. So one is using content, using visual content in a way with clear messaging, as you mentioned, about what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve, I say, with your project. Look at lots of examples of how people have done this, and the people that have been successful are particularly very successful with their raises. We do know that media has a dramatic effect potentially on the success or the extreme of success for campaigns as well. So having a clear strategy, and as an exercise, I see preparing a media release or a media kit, as what Alana mentioned, is I say one of the best exercises to understand what messaging and what you believe will actually resonate with people. If you're pitching to press, even ahead of launching, you'll be able to understand what's resonating and what is actually getting traction with the market. With, again, audience and engagement, just be as persistent with your comms and keeping people, providing insight, keeping people updated, giving insight into the campaign at every stage, especially during the campaign live period. So, and as I think was mentioned as well around setting targets, another aspect to setting a target is also making sure that you can create momentum. Like momentum breeds momentum, and I think plan for success early, and ensure that the messaging from the very early stages, wow, I can't believe how successful we have got off to at this stage. I'm overwhelmed, and I'm humbled by the support that has come into the campaign from day zero, because people really want to learn a success and back a success from an early stage. So I think these are the kind of key points. I think I may go into a bit more detail on some aspects, but there's nothing else other than some of these key points I think will make a successful campaign.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And if anyone does have any more, I guess, specific questions about anything we've sort of had a discussion about this evening, then we can definitely have a bit of a one-on-one chat. If anyone wants to book in a time, there should be a link, I think, in the webinar this evening in the offers tab, where you can actually grab some time with me one-on-one, and we can just have a bit of a chat about your crowdfunding goals, what you're trying to do with your campaign, your timeline, and anything else that you may want to cover in a one-on-one chat. So I guess we'll probably sort of wrap things up tonight. So thanks again to everyone for joining us. if you do want to get started, what are the next steps from now? You can jump onto our website, onto pozible.com, have a look at what Alan said. We've actually got an amazing resource of all of our previously successful campaigns. So you can jump onto the Explore page and actually filter by recently successful, take a look at some of the different categories that we've got on there, and take a look at some of those great examples of successful campaigns. Also, feel free to, as I said, book in some time one-on-one. We're always happy to have a chat and help with the strategy of a crowdfunding campaign. And we'll also be sharing some of the notes and slides from tonight as well, and the recording with anyone that has missed any of the elements, and so you can play it along in your own time. But yeah, thanks so much, Alan, for jumping in and joining me and answering some of those questions as well. Anything you'd like to say in summary?
Thanks so much, Isaac, for everyone attending tonight. No doubt there's many people in lockdown right now, and we feel your pain in Melbourne. So yeah, I think as Ned said, like we're very supportive, like we're very hands-on with campaigns. We want to see success. We're remunerated on success, as was asked earlier as well. So thanks so much again, and yeah, we look forward to seeing some projects.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again. Thanks everyone, and have a great rest of your evening. Bye-bye.